So I'm trying to get everything together to make this third part of a jig tutorial. And this little booger right here, Gideon, Sammy's twin brother, just not identical twin brother, keeps wanting to get in everything, tear it up. Sometimes you just want to take these little things, just take their ears, just a little booger. You ready to run a gun? It's time for blast off. Let's go. Hey guys, Todd here with you. Welcome back to Bassin 101. One of four cats we got around here. But if you ever watched the jig tutorials or when I was tying everything, it was always Gideon and Sammy that was always in the background bombing me in the videos. They're a little bit bigger now. They're a handful, that's for sure. If you have fishing tackle and you have cats, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Today's episode is going to be about rods and reels and line. Everybody has their favorite. I know some guys use 8-foot rods to throw a jig. I know some guys 7.5, 7, 6, whatever. I am more of an old school guy. I like the older stuff better. I think it's just built better. That's just my opinion. I think it's built better. It's stronger. Yeah, today's graphite's a lot lighter, but it's also thinner. So it's not quite as durable. I'm an old IM6 guy. I like, IM6 graphite blanks because you can't kill them. They're a great blank. They might, it depends on the modulus of it. IM6 is a standard type, anywhere from a 33 to a 40 million modulus. If you're familiar with rod technology, you know what I'm talking about there. But it's just, some are heavier than others. Like the Bill Dance class, remember the blue ones, which I've got a whole set of those. They're a little heavier than some of the IM6s that I've got, and I still love them. I think they're for what they were for the money, for $50, brand new. That was a really good rod. It really was, and you can still find them, but it was definitely a really good rod. My choice for jigs, I have two different kinds. My main setup is a 5.5 foot. Now this one is, I just recently acquired, this is a Larry Nixon Team Iowa. And it's a 5.5 foot pistol grip. The other one I have has the old school rubber handle with the screw on, the bottom screw. I like that for worms. This is what I use for jigs. The reel just happens to be my very first reel I ever bought. Back in 1983 with my paper route money, a Daiwa PS10. All I've done to it is add ball bearings and a gator grip handle. That's all I've done to it. But with this, I have 20-pound crystal fire line. Now why crystal? Because the crystal, I can see it as I'm fishing it. I have, for right now, I have a 14-pound leader on here, and that's a standard type deal. My leader is about maybe 15 foot because I like a long leader which keeps this braid out of sight of the fish, but it also gives me a lot of retying on my jigs before it gets so short. I usually don't like a leader to get shorter than 7 or 8 feet. I'll cut it off and go back again. But when you're using Palomar knots, you can go through your line pretty quick. I mean, even if you have monofilament and you're constantly retying things, you'll see pretty quick how far that spool start going down, because you got to figure your average Palomar knot uses up 1.5 feet to maybe 2 foot of line. On average, just depends on what you're tying. Depends on how big your lure is, because you want to get that loop to go around there. If I think that day that I'm going to be changing a lot, I might go to the improved clinch knot. that I showed you on that one tying video or the San Diego Jam. So either way, that just kind of saves line. If you're going to be fishing all day, you don't think you're going to have time to really change your leader out, even though I carry spare line with me for leaders, then that's the kind of knot you want to use. I'm still kind of a Palomar guy myself. But this is a, like I said, this is a 5.5 foot Larry Nixon. And let me get the line off of here so you can see how fast this dude is. I want you to see this. That's an extra fast action tip right there. We're talking beefcake of a backbone, and it's not real thick. It's not a real thick blank. Very lightweight. Of course, it's 5.5 foot, but it's very lightweight. This is my meat and taters jig rod right here. But this is also a good setup for Senkos, worms, spinnerbaits, whatever you want to use. I just like a jig with this. Now the other rod that I have, this is my spinnerbait rod. I showed you all this on one of the river videos. This is also a Team Daiwa Larry Nixon. Straight handle, but it's a little shorter, so it's not real big. And this is about maybe this much longer than my 5.5 footer. But if I want to, pitch into heavy cover, if I'm actually fishing standing up from a boat, and I want to pitch into heavy cover, or let's say I'm making long distance casts, which I really don't like to do with the jig, but I have done it before. Like especially if you're like, whipping it up, let it fall, whipping it, let it fall long distances, which I've done it before. This is a good rod for that. Currently, I have 17-pound XT on here because, like I said, this is my spinnerbait rod. And with it being green, 17-pound test, you're probably thinking, man, that's really big line for a spinnerbait or even jig fishing. 17-pound is 0.0, well, I'm not going to go with the points. It's a 17 thousandths in line diameter, okay? 14-pound is only 16 thousandths. There's really not a lot of difference. Matter of fact, if you put 17 and 14 side by side, you probably couldn't even tell the difference in diameter. But this is what I use for fishing heavier cover. I normally won't fish the straight mono. Now, if I'm standing up and I'm fishing small, making small pitches, then okay, the mono's fine. No problem there. There's really not a lot of stretch when you're making, say, 30, 40 foot pitches in the brush piles and kind of working them. You just want a little bit of extra rod length for a little bit extra reach in what you're doing. But you can do a 5.5 footer, no problem. I've done it before. But this is what I choose for, if I'm standing up and say I might have a Senko tied on this rod. So I have to go to a jig for this one. But again, it's also a PS10. But this rod also has the same type of bend, but it's just a little bit, see that? It's just a little bit heavier blank as far as, not really so much in weight, but as far as backbone, because this dude here has got, good grief, look at that backbone, but you still got a really good tip. So that's what I have for that. And those are my two main jig rigs. You can go to spinning with these jigs. I just prefer not to because it is a little bit heavier setup. By the time you get your chunk on there, your 3/8 jig, which is what I prefer to throw, everything, you're looking at 5/8 ounce lure. Now on a spinning rod, to me, that's just kind of overkill. You could do it. I just choose not to. I prefer to use one of these two. But I'll be honest with you, if I had my choice, a pistol grip, because I can keep this rig right here the whole time, right in front of my chest. I don't like having stuff out here. I don't get the hook set I want, but if I get it right here, I can just drill everything in and get that hook set, and that's why I like a pistol grip for a lot of stuff. And a lot of you guys are thinking, well, pistol grip ain't worth the crap. Well, that's your opinion, and I'll honor that. Okay. As far as this, what's cool about this is I can stick it, the old Roland Martin, son, stick this thing in your gut. you know, when you're pitching and stuff, and you can kind of put this in here, but it still keeps me close. I'm not out here like you would a 7-footer. It keeps me close, and I can get that hook set by doing that. I'm not out here. You know, I'm not going to sit there and fish a jig and sit like this the whole time and fish it. That's when I use this. This is for close range fishing that I can pitch somewhere and just stick it right in my gut and fish it right in front of me just like that. And I'm still kind of close to me, and I can, you know, drill everything in with my forearms. So that's why I choose that. You know, line, you braid, fluorocarbon. I personally don't like using a straight fluorocarbon line because it sinks and you get this bottom swoop and you're no longer hopping your jig, you're dragging your jig. I don't like that. But I will use braid with a fluorocarbon leader, but I will shorten my fluorocarbon leader, say to about 8 or 10 feet. Because the braid floats, and the braid will keep that fluorocarbon up, and by the time it reaches the bottom, you only have a little bit of fluorocarbon touching, and you can get a little bit more hop out of that jig. But basically, when it comes to jig fishing, I don't like fluorocarbon, just because it sinks. That's the only reason. Same thing for plastic worms. It sinks. I don't like that. But that's me. Okay? You might like fluorocarbon, and you probably catch a ton of bass on jigs on fluorocarbon. Don't change. Stick with what you're doing, okay? I'm just helping other people get an idea of what's going on here. If you have your own system that you like, please, by all means, don't change. Keep using that system. But as far as people who are trying to figure out what's going on, I figured I'd just help out a little bit because I kind of like a braid to a leader myself. Again, straight monofilament, nothing wrong with that. You can use straight monofilament all day long. It's not going to hurt nothing. Me, I just feel like, you know, because of my shoulders, my rotator cuffs being gone, it's just easier for me to get a better hook set with a braid to a leader. That's the only reason I do it. But if I'm fishing short range, and I already have, like I said, this is basically my spinnerbait rod, the 6-footer. But if I'm not going to be throwing a spinnerbait and I'm standing up and I'm fishing close quarters cover, you know, brush piles, treetops, riprap, whatever I'm going to be fishing, docks, whatever, then straight monofilament to me is fine because I don't have a lot of line out and I can get that hook set and be fine with that. And I would still probably just stick with 17-pound test on here for that. But if I am making longer range casts, you know, in between things or whatever, then I probably will go to a braid to a leader. And I have spare reels that I carry in my bag that are already loaded with different kind of lines, and I can just swap them out on these reels. Because I have finally decided on my rods as far as what I'm going to have, and I'll do a video on that down the road too, and just carry spare reels. You know, but I still have, you know, still a lot of rods back here that I've got, and the ones that are covered back here, the rod socks and everything, are the ones that I've chosen. And there's some over here too that I've already gone through and chosen. These others sitting back here are just, you know, old antique rods. I love them, but I'll explain all that when I do my rod tutorial as far as what I have finally chosen to use. So that's all I have today, guys. 5.5 foot, 6.5 foot, both with PS10s, braid or monofilament, you know, fluorocarbon if that's what you stick with, then by all means use it. But that's what I have for today, guys. So that's part 3, and that's the end of my jig tutorial. I hope you learned something from it. Or if you didn't, I hope you just enjoyed the video regardless, especially with Gideon bombing the thing at the beginning of it. But anyway, until next time, guys, may the Father bless you and keep in Yeshua's name, and as always, fish on.